50 candidates at the state, local, and federal level and just launch them. We could have a whole project called Project Black School Board and take over school boards across the South. Do you know how we have literally no entity in the entire United States that is designed to get Black people onto school boards? Don't you think that's weird? I think that's weird.
So when I was living in California, and I know you've been to California as well, went to UC Davis for, I know one of the schools you went to. And I was looking at, why is California so blue? How does it move differently than how Florida moves? And when I looked around, when you were talking about training, one thing that I noticed was a lot of really prominent, particularly women leaders, were coming out of a group called Emerge, which I absolutely loved. I've talked with Emerge. They're not in Florida, but they happen to be in areas that are purple, light blue, deep blue, and I absolutely love them. So when I looked at places like California and I look at people like London Breed or Jocelyn Wow or, like Angela Andrews, I actually helped campaign for Angela Andrews, and she was a city council member. And then so many of my other friends, Lori Wilson, Wanda Williams, all got into office, but all kind of started through Emerge. And then there were other groups like Fund Her, which were designed intentionally to give money, particularly to Black women who were trying to start out, who didn't have that capital, but did have the training. And so, and there's nothing like that in Florida, but some of those things do kind of exist in other pockets of the country. And I would love to see an Emerge here in Florida. I would love to see how that would really transform how we are and how we operate.
Right. And we got bigger problems. Christina, your point is really spot on, but we got kind of bigger problems on the Democratic side in Florida. And, I'm not trying to attack the Democratic Party, but the problem with Democratic Party in Florida is that it talks to Democratic Party members. It doesn't talk to Democratic voters. We have no mechanism to talk to Democratic voters. And this has been my main problem forever, right? The entity that talks to Republican voters is Fox News. And it talks to them all day, every day, 24/7, 365, right at their fingertips. MSNBC does not do that. CNN does not do that. We have no entity that does that. And because we have no entity that does that from the media standpoint, it's really important that you would have that in some other capacity. What other capacities do we have in the state of Florida? Well, it's not churches because they're afraid of their tax status, so they don't say anything political. It's not HBCUs because they're getting shut down and underfunded. It's not, you can't admit that you're a Democrat in half the state without fearing for your life or your car getting keyed or whatever. Most of the HOAs won't let you put up a Democratic sign in your yard, right? People get shocked that there are Democrats living in their neighborhood because they can see every Republican but can't see a Democrat to save their lives. We get bullied and intimidated into silence in the state of Florida, right? We don't have anybody who directly challenges Ron DeSantis besides Nikki Fried's tweets. And that's not enough, right? We don't build infrastructure for voter contact in the state of Florida. What we do is we build infrastructure to push vote by mail. We did that. Other entities go and talk to people about things like vote, the pro-choice provision on the ballot or legalizing weed, or remember Amendment 4, like we got that done. And then we lost Amendment 4 by allowing the GOP legislature to get their hands on it, which, by the way, I did try to stop that from happening before it happened, and I was not listened to. So we have an infrastructure problem in the state, and it's such a big state that it's not an easy problem to fix. Of course, I wrote an entire plan on how to fix it 2 years ago, And I published that plan on how to fix that. And I said, instead of spending $100 million in October on television ads that make only a handful of people rich, why not spend half of that by building permanent infrastructure with paid staff across the state of Florida? And I was laughed out of the building because we're penny wise and pound foolish. People told me my plan was too expensive. Spending ads on television stations that people don't even watch TV anymore, but that's rational.
That's the easy route.
But actually taking a philanthropic approach to politics, where you actually build presence in communities that make a difference in people's lives on a day-to-day basis, and tie that to your political goals and tie that to your values and your platform. That's how you get people to see you making a difference in their lives. If you only show up at election time, people don't believe you.
And you know, one of the things, just listening to you, if that kind of money is put on the ground in communities throughout, that means you got people talking about the issues or addressing the issues year round on the ground in your community.
Absolutely. Right. So while you are helping people pay their gas bill and put gas in their car, and with their health care and with their child care, you help them get their VA benefits, you help them get their Social Security. You're also talking about those programs and why it's important to fund those programs. And now all of a sudden they realize that voting will help fund the program that just made my life better. You just handed me a gas card for Chevron to put some gas in my car. And now I understand, like, oh my God, that school lunch program, I understand now that my vote is what makes that happen, because you also helped me figure out how to get free lunch for my kid. And you helped me figure out how to get, my kid transportation to elementary school. And now my life is better. But you need that connection and you need that presence. It is very hard to convince people of anything if you are not present. Right? It's just really not a thing to try to convince and move communities in a real way if you are not present. And our problem is that we are not present. We are not only not present, we are not visible. I don't see Democratic billboards all over the state of Florida. You drive down I-95, I don't know how many billboards you see about abortion, but you don't see a single billboard about Democrats in the state of Florida. I don't know why we are not on the bus side of the buses and the bus stops, and why we don't have advertising on every gaming platform and every Pandora and Spotify. We can be advertising on all of those things. Why are we not all over Haitian radio? Why are we not all over Dominican radio? Why are we not all over? I mean, we have unique populations in the state of Florida that we don't spend any money on their broadcasts that they listen to every single day. Why don't we do that? Because we don't have the resources to do that. But if we did, but we have the resources to cut stupid commercials and run them for $100 million in 1 month to get Joe Biden elected. But that's, again, I'm not against Joe Biden. You guys know I'm not against Joe Biden, but look, that's a stupid way to try to win an election. Doesn't tend to work for us. How did Obama win Florida? He built Obama for America. He built infrastructure and presence in communities across the state. Sadly, he also wrapped that up when he was done.
Yeah.
It didn't stay.
Jill, did you have some questions for Pam?
So Pam, I actually want to know, what are you doing now besides all that? And you're about to write a book. You're going to work on infrastructure, and you're going to put us all back together.
Oh, no, I'm not doing that.
All broken pieces and put it all back together. But besides that, what are you actually doing now?
So I live in Washington, D.C. I did move out of the state of Florida. And I run a law firm called the Center for Employment Justice. And what Center for Employment Justice does is it takes on cases in which we feel we can address systematic racism, sexism, or bias in employment. The majority of my clients, not all, but the majority of my clients are actually Black female police officers and firefighters. And what we do is try to address systematic racism in policing by calling out racist police officers and leaders, and the systematic things that go inside a police department that translate to how that police department engages with the community. Most of the time that you find a Derek Chauvin kneeling on somebody's neck on the street. That guy was already showing his racism to people in his police department and bullying them into silence and doing all kind of crazy things. And so because Black women are like the canary in the coal mine, they're the first ones to get it. If you got somebody who's sideways, they're the first people, but they're the last ones to be listened to. So I filed a class action lawsuit here in Washington, D.C. on behalf of 10 Black female police officers. It's first of its kind, alleging systematic race and gender discrimination in policing in the District of Columbia. So that case is still pending. From that case, I got all these other cases from whistleblowers, right? Because we have little things that we don't understand about the system. That is why our police treat our community the way they do. Number one, the blue code of silence. Everybody knows about the blue code of silence.
It's a gang. They're a gang.
Right. But do you know why that goes over the way it does? Because any legislation that you have that holds management accountable for whistleblower retaliation doesn't involve holding the union accountable too. Our laws could be fixed easily by holding unions both financially and otherwise accountable for retaliation against fellow police officers. Because that's really where most of the retaliation comes from. It comes from your fellow officers. They isolate you, they ostracize you, they bully you, they won't back you up on the job, they make your life a living hell. And so you realize that it's better to stay quiet.
Or even kill you.
A simple legislative change that includes police unions as being liable for retaliation would change the culture of policing almost overnight. Another thing. What
about qualified immunity that
we're barking up the wrong tree with that one. Qualified immunity, the problem with removing qualified immunity is that you have to ask yourself, what are the political headwinds you're facing?
Mm-hmm.
Right? I just like defund the police. That was a stupid idea because it ran into political headwinds too hard. But see, the things that I suggest are things that are not going to be that much. It's not that hard to pull off, right? If you are a legislature and you've got whistleblower retaliation on the books, all you have to do is add one line that says, and that a union can be held liable too. That's it. It doesn't cost any money, right? And that's it. That would change the game overnight. Another thing that would change the game overnight is changing legislation to make judges intercede when the blue code of silence is being enacted, to allow temporary restraining orders to actually be implemented. Right now, the law says you can get a TRO, but the judges say we don't do that to police departments. We don't enjoin them. We let the police departments do what they want to do. And then if you got a problem, you deal with it 6 or 7 years later. That is precisely how we end up at the situation where a police department can bury some man behind a prison in Mississippi, find 215 bodies in there. How does that happen? Because you let the police departments do what they want to do, and then they're supposed to fix it later. We could change that overnight, and it wouldn't cost us a dime.
And that was going to be the next topic we were going to address, because I want to hear what the rest of the panel has to say also about these 215 bodies that was found, and what are y'all thoughts on that? We'll start with you, Bill. What's
I'm behind the 8 ball on that one. I yield the floor.
Christina, did you know about that?
So I didn't, and it's sad. I was just in Jackson. I just got back from Jackson, Mississippi today. My son's committed to go to school out there, and so this is a shock to me, but it shouldn't be. It was, I believe, in Mississippi, where they called themselves, I want to say, the Goon Squad. It was something like 4 officers into 2 men's homes, beat them up, sexually assaulted them,
right.
horribly, just humiliated them. Police officer a police officer ended up shooting one of them in the mouth. And then a cover-up started. And I want to say it took months for there to be a conviction. I want to say the conviction just came in August, and I want to say the assault happened months and months before. And, you know, that wasn't their first time doing this. And so it was all because a man dated a white woman. And so, but I didn't know anything about the 215 bodies found.
Are you alluding to?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, Jerry, you guys alluding to the black guy that was killed by police that had ID on him, and they didn't tell his mom that they had buried him until 5 or 6 months later. Where they buried him, you're saying they found 256 bodies.
That was the beginning of it, yeah. So yeah, the what's happened, to your point, that was, I guess, the linchpin.
Oh my God.
Well, they found, you know, through the efforts that they took, the exhaustive efforts of the family, who then found out that their loved one was buried. And remember, the sheriff's department came and moved the body before they came to move. They have now subsequently, not including that gentleman, have found over 200 bodies behind the jail that they have. I won't say that they did the same thing, so I don't know the circumstances behind all of those deaths, but those people that are unmarked, to your point, that they just buried behind the jail at this point in time.
So if Mama had not been on a serious quest to find her son, this could still be going on.
Right.
Absolutely. And the reason, so what you said, Christina, was that, you know, there was a cover up. We say there was a cover up. What does a cover up look like? Right? So let's just say there's a gang of police officers, they rape and beat up and shoot somebody. All of them are in agreement that they're not going to speak on it. And of course, if one person starts to look like they're going to report, then they all gang up and bully him and make sure that he remains silent and he may get disappeared. And then everybody else in mid-A. This is why I'm talking about the reason you have to hold unions accountable, because almost always in those situations, union leadership is leaning on officers to cover each other's six.
Now I'm understanding why the police suicide rate is so high.
The pressure
They're killing them.
The pressures they put on police officers.
Well, they're actually killing them and claiming it's suicide.
Yeah, well, anyway, the point I'm making is that that's a culture problem. It's a culture problem. Policing culture. And you don't address that culture by constraining management, but letting union do whatever they want to do.
Yeah, but that's really a tragedy, because how many parents been looking for their children, or family members been looking for their family members, brothers or sisters or husbands and wives or whatever whatever the case may be. They, you know, now they just, you know, they got to dig up all these, they got to do DNA testing on all of these bodies to find out who the relatives are. And many relatives, you know, coming forward. And I hear of Black people calling Ben, what's his name? Crump. Yeah, Ben Crump, an ambulance chaser. I'm like, a lot of these things we wouldn't even know about if it wasn't for people like Ben Crump. Ben Crump has been exposing a lot of stuff. And, you know, because he sent a lot of stuff out on social media, I get his, you know, I'm on his site. So he sends stuff out all the time about different things that are happening where people are being killed by law enforcement that you don't even hear about. And, you know, you heard very little about this happening on the news. If it hadn't been for people like Ben Crump, we probably wouldn't have heard anything about the 215. They talked about the one guy that was missing, but the mother was so persistent. That's how they found that young man, because was determined to find her son. And she knew that, you know, he shouldn't have been gone that long.
And what makes it to me especially even more, I mean, the act itself that you're burying people just randomly is egregious and disgusting and vile. But Jackson County has doubled down on it by telling the families, if you want to find out and get them on, you know, their bodies exhumed, you have to pay us.
Yeah.
And this is the thing that's bothering me. Where the hell is the FBI?
Hmm.
Hell, Merrick Garland. Right? Where's DOJ?
Right.
The civil rights violations we're talking about here.
All right.
Right? Like if you saw some mass grave behind a police, you know, behind a prison and nobody's got explanations, that's something I expect DOJ to care about. Not just Mississippi. And I don't have high expectations for Mississippi, I'll be honest.
I don't.
Right. When Christina, when you told me your son is committed to Mississippi, the first thing that went through my mind was, Lord Jesus, please pray some cover over that child. I can't. No. See,
He committed to Belhaven University in Jackson.
Yeah, well, you know, I will pray for his great success and protection, but I would never allow another. The South is, to me, there's a resurgence of Jim Crow that is just frightening. It's just frightening. But in any event, you know, we look at these things, you know, as to what's happening. And again, it's just, why is there not a coordinated Black community response? Why is there not an entity that puts together a white paper or a press briefing or a social media kit or anything for the Black community to put out? Why is there no entity that says, okay, this is what happened, you know, sends a newsletter to all of the different organizations of Black people? We don't have a repository of all these organizations. We don't have a database that we can send out a blast to all these organizations, the Freemasons, the Rotarians, and all the other ones that we have, that would just give them a one paragraph that says, this is happening in Mississippi. Please have your members put out the following message. Because that's what the Republicans do.
So Pam, you got to hurry up and write that book so we can start pushing, so we can get all these things together, because you know, you coming up, you know, all of these things are needed. You know, when I listen to you, it's so much that we have to do that need to be done, and you know, what, you know, I guess that's why you are not a congressperson, because you were speaking truth to power, and they were not gonna, you know, to deliver that truth. And so, you know, I hope that that changes, maybe, you know, while you're in DC, but definitely we need you to write that book. So, you know, because that all of the things you brought up is so important to our community, like we talked about the white thing, you know, so something that we can get to, you can get information to all the different groups and organizations and entities that need to be gotten to. So hopefully, you know, you put that together, that book together. I think that's going to be amazing.
Like, if you knew how busy my firm is right now, it is incredible. It's insane, because there's just no shortage of people needing representation, and I structure my fees in a way that are designed to be affordable for people. I really am trying to be a resource for people. But I tell you that we gotta, I'm not saying anything that you all don't already know. Like, all of you all already know this.
You know what? Can I interrupt just for a second? It's not that we don't know it. Sometimes I think the pleasure of you is how you say it. It's the straightforwardness, it's the backup, and it's the facts. And I just remember somebody would ask a question, you'd be like, and I have an answer for that. That's da 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 da, and here's the facts, and you can go look it up and da da da. I think it's that. It's not that we don't know it. We might even think it, but we don't put it all together. Like, I wouldn't have sat here and said, that's what it is. We don't have. But when you sat there and listed, we don't have this, and we don't have this, and we don't have this, you're right, we don't have it. So I'm going to ask you, don't everybody hate me for this, but I'm going to ask Pam this because you're on the show today. So we don't have that. And we're not going to get it in 2024 because Pam's too busy to write the book, Jerry. But she's going to write it. It just might not be done in time for November 2024. So what would you say? Let's tackle Florida first. What do? We have an election coming up. We've got Trump over there. We've got DeSantis. We've got Scott. We've got Gates. We're sitting what I would say is closest to hell as I ever want to get. What do we do? What, in your mindset, what does Florida do? Let's start there.
First things first, the GOP legislature in this session is going to try to change vote by mail. Okay, so that has got to be the number one top priority of every person in the state that you have any contact with, that they need to be on the, like, protesting. You need to have Tallahassee surrounded by protesters if they try to touch vote by mail. And they're not, and they're gonna try to attack vote by mail, not just to diminish the Black vote, but also to stop this abortion provision from being successful, right? The second thing is, and I'm gonna say this, and I know that there are religious people who listen to this, and I want you to hear me on this. Put it aside for a moment. We have to lean into legalizing weed. We have to lean into getting that on the ballot. Why? Because that has the potential of turning out a demographic we have had historically such a difficult time to turn out to vote, right? Because young, Black, brown, even white people will come out for that issue. And that's a group that you can't cajole, you can't reason, you cannot guilt into voting. If they don't want to vote, they ain't gonna vote. But that is an issue that will make them want to vote, right? And when you give them something that gives them a reason to show up, they'll show up. So we got to give them that reason. So you got to lean into the groups that are getting that on the ballot. If you can get weed legalization on the ballot plus choice on the ballot, you now have 2 ballot measures that will drive turnout. You got to stop the shenanigans with the vote by mail, right? And then you got, elections are about candidates. The hell are we doing about candidates? The problem with Florida is it's a big state, it's an expensive state. Even districts in Florida are expensive to run, right? But the biggest problem is you won't have candidates in 3/4 of the state. You don't have any candidates. Who's your Democratic candidate for Congress in Okaloosa County? Who's running? I don't even know. You got a Senate candidate in Debbie Murcaso Powell. I think there's a couple others that are running that I haven't really seen or heard anything from. But does Joe Biden carry the ticket in Florida? We've already learned that Joe Biden does not carry the ticket in Florida. So how do you save Florida? I would say get some great candidates for school board and get them on the ballot. Get people at some of those local races, get them on the ballot because they can bring their family there. They can drive some sort of bottom-up turnout and really lean into those ballot measures, protect vote by mail, and pray. Because what we failed to do, which is what was in this plan that I wrote, what we failed to do was address the fact that the GOP was recruiting Republicans to the state, and not just Republicans, but a certain kind of Republican to the state. And we Democrats did not do anything to increase the number of Democrats on the voter rolls organically, right? We didn't try to convert snowbirds into Florida residents. We did not advertise in retirement magazines in Michigan and Wisconsin to bring teachers into our state, retired teachers and retired nurses to our state. Republicans went out there, recruited retired police officers to Florida because they're hardcore right wing. What did we do to recruit teachers and nurses who are more blue to this state? Nothing. Right? We did absolutely nothing proactive to increase the Democratic voter rolls. The one place where we have some opportunity to truly expand the voter rolls is with young people. Of course, what's happening in Israel is not helping us on that front at all. But young people still care about climate and guns and choice. They still care about those three things. So how do we get young people to register other young people? Pay them to do it. Where are our resources to hire teenagers to register other teenagers? Make it a job. And I'm not talking about pencil whipping. I'm talking about actual registrations that are verified. Like, why don't we do that? One of the things that I advocated is to do an arts competition. Do a competition for young people where there's real money, let's say $100,000 to $50,000 prizes for their little TikTok videos on Democratic platform and why they're voting blue. And the more it shares over TikTok, the more credit they get towards winning this prize. Why does this matter? Because their content is original and young people know how to talk to other young people. TikTok is where it's at. Instagram is where it's at, right? They know how to motivate each other to turn out to vote. How do you do that? Give them some money incentive. I want to see content all over TikTok about why I'm voting out Republicans. Why does that matter? That's how they influence each other. That's how they move amongst each other, right? If you give them $100,000 in cash or $50,000 in cash or a scholarship, they're going to do it because young people like money. They're money motivated just like everybody else. If you paid young people, if you gave them a financial incentive to use social media to our advantage, we could do it that way. But do we think like that? No, I don't know why. I wrote a whole plan, chapter, verse, and footnotes. And I handed that to the Democratic Party of Florida. They have that plan. Did they do anything with that plan? Not a thing. Too busy doing Kennedy King dinners. We do not need another Kennedy King dinner. We need a plan to register teenagers.
So sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Derek.
Just gonna ask, I have a question because you talked about protecting vote by mail. So for those who are not as familiar with what you're talking about, Senate Bill 1752 has been drafted in the Senate right now, which is, I think for those who have been with us for a couple of shows now, or we'll go back to the last show, we talked about Blaise and Gogley, or however you say his name, the senator who put together the bill that would essentially eliminate the ability for Black Americans to get to get reparations within the state of Florida. And we all talked about, like, if you recall, we said, you know, I get it, but he is notorious for putting out red herring bills. So while we're getting mad about this one bill, something's going to slip around and then we'll have something and not know until it's too late that we're going to have it. In my opinion, this is that bill. So he got us distracted about reparations for Black Americans. So then we have Senate Bill 1752, which essentially, to everybody's point, to the point that Pam's making, it guts vote by mail for registered voters in the state of Florida. I guess my question is, given that we have a Republican supermajority, what does protecting our ability to vote by mail look for registered voters?
I mean, it's not just Black people who vote by mail, right?
You're right. No, I'm saying, but in the state of Florida, how do you feel? What does that look like in terms of protection? Because, it seems like they'll just pass it,
Well, I mean, they'll just pass it. And, I honestly don't know. I mean, all I can say is fighting is, if you don't fight, they definitely are going to take it away from you. So you might as well just try to fight. And we know what it looks like to truly fight something and be all over the place and show up in Tallahassee and show up people's offices, get, you know, grandma and grandpa and auntie and all of them to call and, you know, just make it a living hell for them, right? Just, I mean, that's the only thing I know how to do. We kind of blew it when we didn't press our advantage in 2016 and 14 and 12. Like, we did not press our advantage. Passivity, passivity, passivity. So the Republican Party came up with a strategy and a plan to turn Florida completely red, and they executed that plan. Who was writing the plan to flip Florida blue besides me? Who wrote that plan? We had Manny Diaz as our Democratic Party chair. Then we had Terry Rizzo as our Democratic Party chair. We have Nikki. Have you ever seen their plan to flip the state blue? Because Jill, I know you saw mine. I put pen to paper and wrote a 58-page plan to flip Florida blue in 4 years. I put it down to where the votes are, programs for each demographic, programs for each part of the state, where the offices should be, what the staff should be, who they should report to. I mean, it was granular. Somehow we think we're going to flip the state without a plan. Doesn't seem to have worked so far.
Oh,
She asked me, what should we do? What does it look like? I'm like, you know, I wrote you a plan. But what does it look like now? I mean, I don't know. They didn't do any of the things in the plan, so I don't know. I mean, a lot of people are writing off Florida. I'm like, look, if there is a chance of hope for Florida, the only thing I can see is that you get a combination of the pro-choice vote, the pro-weed vote, some really interest, you know, you do support some real energy into registering young people, and you protect vote by mail, and you just hope Trump is the nominee.
Yeah. And look like he's gonna be the nominee. He got a 50-point lead, they say, or 30-point, or whatever he got.
Don't believe the polls, my friend. I think he is going to be the nominee, but I think polls, don't believe the polls. The polls are off. They're just not credible. They're not.
Yeah, I agree
think Biden is in a much better position than the polls are saying that he is. That's I'll leave your audience with this thought, which is this. Polls are speculative, results are not. In the last 2 elections, we have had a body of data to look at, right? The most relevant one to me, well, you know, the most important thing to me is you know, saving our democracy. I'm more focused on saving our entire democracy than saving Florida, but you know, my heart is still in Florida. But if you look at it, Biden, there were 5 states that Biden won that he needed to win the presidency, right? You look at Arizona, Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona, Pennsylvania, and Georgia, maybe, right? Of those states, which of those states can you definitively say today is more red than it was in 2020? Is Georgia more red than it was in 2020? Negative. It reelected Warnock. Is Pennsylvania more red today than it was in 2020? Nah, they voted Shapiro and Fetterman. Is Arizona more red today than it was in 2020? It elected Katie Hobbs. Is Wisconsin more red today than it was in 2020? It got Tony Evers. In our latest election, we won a state Supreme Court statewide election. Is Michigan more red today than it is in 2020? No, they reelected Gretchen Whitmer. Right. So while Republicans are heavily encouraged by these polls, these head-to-head horse race polls between Trump and Biden, I am encouraged by the actual results, which are showing very few states are going more red today than they were in 2020. Right. That's not to say that I'm overly confident. There are some weaknesses in Michigan. We're losing the Muslim vote in Michigan, and that's a problem.
Yeah.
Right. we're losing progressive voters on this Israel thing. That is a problem. But I also think that some of the middle is coming our way because the Republican Party is just off the rails crazy.
Yeah.
But is there hope for 2024? Yes, there's hope for 2024. I think women are freaked the hell out about court after court saying, if you're dying in a hospital, they don't need to treat you. And I hope that some men who love, respect, and admire and support women or have women in their lives are also freaked the hell out about that.
Yeah, it's a black woman on trial.
She's being tried for abuse of a corpse because she had a miscarriage. Like, I'm hoping that we all wake up and be like, nah, we're not doing that. Right. But if there is a time for a tempest in a teapot, now is that time. We have to lean into that. We need to be educating every girl who is going to be 18 in November that she needs to vote to save her own damn life.
You're absolutely right.
It's not philosophical anymore. They will literally let you bleed out.
Yeah, because they are forcing women to carry babies to term, even though the baby is dead.
No, but I mean, if you have a miscarriage, I mean, people don't even know biology of women's anatomy. Like, if you have a miscarriage, you have to have a D&C, or you can go septic. They're gonna let women die of sepsis, blood poisoning, over their philosophical crap. Like, no. So, anywho, my point is that is an issue. People are not voting Biden. Some people are. I'm not. I'm voting choice and rationality and democracy and all the things. I'm voting Black community. I'm voting all the things. I can see that the enemy of the Black community is the GOP. So everything I do has to be to stop that enemy, period, full stop. Do I have to like who's on that ballot? No. Do I have to agree with everything that person on the ballot is? No. But know thine enemy.
Yeah, because the democracy is definitely at stake now. You know,
democracy's at stake, people.
Yeah, it's on the ballot.
As a matter of fact, Trump,
I think most people do get that. And so if you're asking me to plan for Florida, that's what I'm telling you. Don't worry. Don't focus so much on the top of the ticket people. Focus on the issues. And drive those two issues and drive the young registration. You got to increase the number of Democrats on the voter rolls. The number we have does not cause us to win.
Now, let me ask you this. Do you think, and this is kind of off the topic a little bit, do you think Netanyahu is doing this purposely to help defeat Joe Biden?
No. I think Netanyahu is doing this purposely to keep himself in power.
Yeah.
I know he's under investigation and might be going to court himself.
No, Netanyahu is a one-trick pony. Every time he's getting crossways of the electorate, he finds some reason to do an attack on the Palestinians because it distracts the population. So one thing he can unify Israelis around. And he's not even successful at truly unifying Israelis because what we don't see is the number of Israelis that are completely against what's happening here. But the problem of what's happening now, I mean, I'm just going to wrap this up. But like, people, do we understand how dangerous the situation is because it's escalating?
Right.
Like, this case in South Africa is being against Israel is now being signed off on by Malaysia and Turkey too. So it's not just South Africa anymore, right? What is the consequence of the ICC coming up with the finding that Israel has engaged in genocide and the United States has enabled that? What is the consequence of that?
Right.
Right. So what we're not hearing on CNN is that Hezbollah out of Lebanon is bombing targets in northern Israel. They're opening a front on the north of Israel. Hezbollah has way more capacity than Hamas does. And they're both Shia. So what happens when Lebanon gets pulled into it and Israel, did a drone strike in Beirut? So now Lebanon thinks they can get involved in this. And now Iran is sending warships into the Red Sea to support the Houthis that are blocking shipping to Israel. Like it's not going the right way. It is escalating and it's expanding. And the last thing we need going into an election is Joe Biden embroiling us and our troops in another Middle Eastern war.
It looked like that's what's about to happen, though. And I've been watching it every day. It looked like this thing is expanding much further than anybody thought about. And then you got what's his name in the hospital? Lloyd Austin is in the hospital.
I mean, but the bigger problem is that Joe Biden has a philosophy. His philosophy is about friendship with Israel, and that philosophy is supported by the funding of Jewish groups across. I mean, but the bottom line is this: we need Joe Biden's primary philosophy to be about what's in the best interest of the United States, not what's in the best interest of Israel. Do we want Israel to disappear off the face of the planet? Of course not. Of course not. But if they are our allies, as we say they are, if we're funding them, if we're paying the cost of this, if we're the ones supplying the weapons, then we should be able to tell Israel to cease and desist. We should at least be able to tell Israel to cease and desist. And the fact that we don't seem to be able to do that really kind of frightens me.
Yeah.
Because this thing has got to come to an end at some point. And I'm saying every single day that this thing is carrying on, it is dragging down our chances of saving this democracy going into the election.
It is. It's definitely so. And that's why I was wondering, is there a strategy out there to bring down
well, I mean, Secretary Blinken is going, I don't know, Jerry, Secretary Blinken is going out there to do something. Personally, I don't think that Joe Biden should be sending Secretary Blinken. I think Joe Biden should be sending Joe Biden out there.
Yeah.
I think he needs to get on a plane and do a Jimmy Carter, he needs to do something to bring this to an end. Netanyahu has no interest in bringing this to an end because the minute this is over, the attention goes back onto his head and whether it should still be in that prime minister seat.
Right. And he tried to destroy the judiciary over there.
Yeah, and they said no.
Yeah.
They said no. And his trial for corruption is restarting. So again, he's using this as a unification, but also as a distraction. And the damage that's being done. Like, has anybody put any thought into what would look like if the United States is barred from the Olympics because of what we're doing? I mean, if we can bar Putin, Russia and Belarus, maybe they can bar us. We are losing the moral high ground if we ever had any. We are losing relationships. Do you have any idea what the impact on our economy is going to be if OPEC decides that it's had enough of this and it cuts off gas and oil to the United States?
Well, America is the leading producer in oil right now with $70 a gallon.
Yeah, maybe, but that is with normal supply out of KSA and Iraq and all those other. Like, if you cut off supply from Saudi Arabia and you cut off supply from Iraq and Iraq, like, guess what? What happens to the price of oil? Do you think it's going to stay at $70 a barrel? I don't think so.
You're right about it. You're right.
This is catastrophic. I mean, I think it's Putin's hand behind this. I think Putin's hand's behind this because Putin's hand's behind everything negative in the world as far as I'm concerned. But the whole world is kind of sick of the United States. Let's be honest. We've been a bully on the block for a long time. The whole world's kind of sick of it. It's sick of colonialism. It's sick of racism. It's sick of West-centric policy. There are a whole lot of Black and brown global majority out there that's sick of our shit. I'm going to say it.
Right about it. But they didn't just begin to get sick. They've been sick for a while.
No, but they're seeing a vulnerability now that they haven't seen.
Absolutely.
There's an
Absolutely.
opportunity. And we're creating an environment in which our enemies and our adversaries can coalesce against us, and that ain't a good thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I see what's happening in Nigeria and other places around the world where they're kicking France. They're gonna kick France out. That means that this oil, gold, and uranium and all of that is that we've been getting almost for free. Now we're gonna have to pay for it in many countries, and so is France and all in the European countries. But the thing about it, people are tired of our stuff.
Exactly. And so this idea that we need to keep sending weaponry to Iran, like, I'm not even sure it's getting through. Like, I don't know. This is just.
You mean Ukraine, you said Iran.
Yeah, well, no, Ukraine, at least I understand the reason why we want to support Ukraine.
Democracy, right.
It's because they're taking the bullet to Russia. They're the ones staving off Russian expansion. Let's be honest. Ukraine is looking to be a Western democratic bloc, all the things, and that's great. But mostly, if we don't stop Russia in Ukraine, it'll be our job to stop Russia in Poland.
Yeah. Yeah, they're UN, yeah.
So it's NATO. Like, we have an obligation to Poland. We have do we really want another Russian expansion? Come on, people, be real. Like, yes, I support Ukraine because I support Ukraine, but I also support Ukraine because I truly detest Russia. To the bottom of my soul, I detest Russia. And you should too. Because Russia is dangerous. Russia's an authoritarian state and is racist as hell. So if we're scared of a racist world order, then it's the Putin world order we should be afraid of. And most of us don't even think about the consequence of the United States losing influence globally to Russia or China. Neither one of them is particularly good, and certainly not for our people, be them here or in the global diaspora of Black people. Russia's not good for Black people. China's not good for Black people.
China is definitely not for China, because China is buying up.
They're just buying it up and exploiting the hell out of it.
Yeah, yeah. And
at least the United States has some Black people here who can speak up for Black people elsewhere, but we don't do a good job of that. We could, but we don't. We've been silent on what's going on in the Congo.
Yeah.
But I go on too many different directions. So sorry. I'm apologizing.
That's all right. I took you down that rabbit hole because I asked that question. Christina, you have something?
I was really glad to hear what you had to say. I know we have just a couple minutes left. I guess my question with you being a lawyer, looking at what happened in Colorado with removing Trump from the ballot and then they put him back on the ballot, or they certified the ballot with him on it. Can that be done elsewhere? Like actually not have him appear on the ballot and have it go through in any other state?
Well, he's already been removed from the ballot in Maine.
It's like 10 other states, I think it is.
10 other states. But here's what I predict. The weird thing is that this is one of those situations where the originalists, the conservatives, should back up what the original intent of the Constitution, the words are. The words are not ambiguous. They're not. He's not eligible. He's disqualified. And disqualification is not something that's negotiable. What the Republicans are arguing is, democracy, people should have a choice. The problem is, you don't have a choice to vote for a 35 or a 25-year-old for president. You should have a choice. No, because we said that's just, you're not qualified, right? You can't vote for somebody who was not a natural born citizen. Why? Because you're not qualified. right? And that's not optional. And but our Supreme Court is profoundly corrupted.
Yeah.
Right? And we know exactly how 3 of those justices are going to vote. They're going to twist themselves into a pretzel to say that Donald Trump can be on the ballot. We know that 3 are going to say, hell no. The provision says what it says, and we have to enforce the provision. The other 3 is question mark, don't know. But if I'm a betting person, which I'm not, by the way, but if I were, I would say that they're going to put him on the ballot because they themselves don't want to deal with the wrath of the consequence of not doing so. It's personal. Like he's got compromise on them, or they don't want to live their lives looking over their shoulder for his minions and hyenas that will come for them if they don't. They don't want to, so I don't know. But my suspicion is that they're going to put him back on the ballot. Personally, I'm okay with that. I mean, we ought to be able to beat the dude.
I think we can.
We ought to be able to beat the dude. And if he's on I think that there are, it's a weird kind of Hobbesian situation. On the one hand, he is their turnout machine. Without him, they have no choice of winning.
Yes.
No shot at winning without him because he is their turnout machine.
The beauty of it is that as an idiot, he's the best they have to offer.
He's the best they have to offer. However, at the same time, he also terrifies everybody else.
Absolutely.
Right? So he turns their people out, but he also turns our people out.
Yes.
As you know how many there are. I'm naively, perhaps, convinced that there's more of us than there are of them. What convinces me of that is that we won by 8 million votes last time, and I don't think their base grew bigger. I think it's gone smaller.
I'm sure it's smaller.
Right? Because they wanted their people to die from COVID. We did not. Because their people are dying from old age and ours are aging into the voter rolls. I don't think more people are MAGA today than in 2020.
Absolutely.
So therefore, yeah. But I have PTSD from 2016.
Yeah.
I didn't think we could ever go there in the first place.
Really?
And so him being on the ballot means that I'm not going to sleep
Right.
comfortably until the election is over. And even then I might not sleep. Right? Because of what he did and what he's capable of doing and whatever, listening to members of Congress right now saying that they're not going to certify the election unless they win, that gives me great consternation. And of course, this is all due to the passivity of Merrick Garland, who could have gotten all those seditionists out of Congress and just chose not to. Right? I mean, and what George Santos did was bad, but it wasn't as bad as sedition.
Yeah.
He's out of Congress, but Jim Jordan's still there. Matt Gaetz is still there. And, Marjorie Taylor Greene is still there. Lauren Boebert is still there. Biggs, Perry, all of them dudes still there. Gohmert, all there, still there, right? And they're the votes that will or will not certify our election. So hearing Elise Stefanik on CNN talking about she ain't going to certify the election unless it goes her way, it just throws our country into chaos.
And that's what I'm saying. It's exactly what they are trying to do. It seems to me it's a strategy to do just that, to end democracy as we know it, the little we do have.
If they were willing to piss all over their oath of office in 2021 and object to certifying the election then, what makes you think they're going to not object to certifying the election next time?
Well, if that guy wins this time, there won't be an oath of office.
I don't know what they'll be.
Huh? He's not going to swear to uphold the Constitution of the United States of America.
No,
so why? There's no need for an oath.
No, I mean, I can't. On the one hand, I cannot believe that would actually happen, but it did happen. So obviously, it can happen. But I'm just prayerful that we have our act together, and we got to have plans. We can't just be winging a prayer. Like, we got to have strategies. We have to have tactics. And again, we leave too much to chance. We leave too much to hoping people will do the right thing rather
Well,
than
I guess,
to do the right thing.
and I guess that's my point. I mean, we say this here one day after the when the insurrection happened. And, I would have never thought I saw that either. So, just constitutionally, I just didn't know from a legal standpoint, will that stick and will that hold?
I think that the court will say that in a modern time, you have to have some kind of finding of insurrectionism before you pick them off the ballot, right? I think that's what they're going to do. However, that may be a problem in and of itself, because we may have a finding of insurrection, through a court of law or something like that. The Colorado case did have specific factual findings of insurrection, and they are extensive and they are based on evidence-based. And so I don't know that in and of itself, I just don't know what they're going to say, because the provision itself doesn't say anything about a conviction. It doesn't say anything about a court of law, right? It says shall have engaged in, right? And so now you can say, well, what does engage? What does insurrection? There's some group of people out there talking about, well, support and defend, or, defend is different than support, and, the Constitution, like whatever, I don't know. But the answer to your question in a short way is they should uphold the decision of Colorado. That is the legally correct thing to do. That is the precedential thing to do, because we use that provision to kick people out of Congress after the Civil War. And they were not convicted of anything. They were just kicked out of Congress because of their engagement in insurrection.
So Trump already said day one, he want to be a dictator. So he's telling you, he already said that he's going after retribution. He's going after what he called his enemy, not his opponents. He said his enemy. So everybody that's his opponent is going to be his enemy. And anybody that criticized him or said anything about him, he's going after them. And so that's what makes this guy so dangerous. This guy is totally off his rockers, and he gonna have at least 60 million people out there voting for him, at least. Yeah.
So my question to you is, do you not think it's surreal that this man is still anywhere in the ballpark of being elected?
Exactly.
It's surreal. So whose fault is that? Mayor Garland sat for 2 years before he even appointed Jack Smith.
Right.
Whose fault is it that a stone cold coup plotting insurrectionist is just in a position to be reelected?
And the thing about it, they came so close to, I mean, they really overran the Capitol, and just didn't know what to do after they did it, but they overran the Capitol. That is where the power lies, in the Capitol. That's where legislation and all of that is grind out. And in the Capitol.
You're absolutely right, Jerry. But the thing is, and I hate to say this because it causes me pain to say this, but they didn't need to overrun the Capitol. They just needed to hold the vote. Had Mike Pence rejected the elector and not held the vote, if he had rejected the results in the Senate, they would have held the vote in the House. They would have had an emergency petition over to the Supreme Court and asked the Supreme Court to decide which slates of electors should be counted. And the Supreme Court was ready to require briefing of the issue, which would have held the inauguration for 3 weeks or 4 weeks, which would have given Trump all the time he needed for that martial law and all of that chaos.
Mm-hmm.
So
wow.
really, Mike Pence is the reason we still have democracy today.
And they was about to lynch him, though.
That's why they wanted to lynch him. The reason they wanted to lynch him was because he wouldn't play ball with this Green Bay sweep plan. Chuck Grassley, on the other hand, was willing to play ball. My question is, why is Chuck Grassley not in prison?
Exactly.
Why has anybody, but why has Grassley not been indicted? Why has Ron Johnson not been indicted? Right? Because they played active roles in this plan to subvert the election. Why are they still at large?
Yeah,
Because
Ted
we have an
Cruz.
attorney general that protects powerful white Republicans. That's what he thinks his job is, and that's what he does. He gets us all distracted about he put 700 minions in jail. I don't care if he put 700 minions in jail. They're not the ones who enabled this thing. It's the plotters, the financiers, the planners. It's the Eastmans, the Cheeseburgers. They're the ones who plotted all of this, and not a one of them is in jail. Not a one of them is held accountable, right? Who's the mastermind of all of this? Donald Trump. Is he in jail? Not that I could tell. Oh, he's got 91 charges. Yeah. 3 years too late.
Exactly. Our time is just about up. I want to recommend a book. I definitely want to thank you, Pam, for coming on with us tonight. Derek, did you have something before we go? Before we start recommending books?
No, not at all. Just thank you for everybody, and to make sure that you attend whatever your efforts are for Martin Luther King weekend, upcoming festivities, whether you're in Escambia, Santa Rosa, Okaloosa, or wherever you are. I'm sure there's something going on. Please make sure that you do that. Also, don't make sure you register to vote, and register for vote by mail if you have not yet done so. And that's all that I have.
And when are we supposed to be going to Tallahassee? Are we supposed to be going to the legislature? Go ahead, Derek.
No, I think it's the 7th of
February 7th.
February. Yeah, of February 7th. Yeah, and there'll be more to talk about as we come, but I think we're in a better position. Or I think you're talking about day of the Capitol, correct?
Right.
Yeah, so we're in a better position this year than were last year. So we'll have some things to share, I think, in our next week, in our next week's show.
Okay. Again, we want to thank Pam Keefe, Attorney Pam Keefe, for coming on with us tonight to express how she feels about a lot of things, what we need to do to move forward. Just want to recommend some books. This one is the National Reparation Declaration. Really would like for everybody to read that. I'm going to try to get a book for everybody. Also, found this Medical Aparte. I have been looking for it for a minute, and for a good price. It's a good book by Harriet H. Washington, and Black people invented everything. So we're going to talk about that in some of the shows. And then Feeding the Soul. This is a great book here, Feeding the Soul. So hopefully I found this today. So hopefully that we get a chance to talk about some of the books that I recommend, because they are so important and so informative. And that's why we're doing this show, is inform and transform. And that's why we are here. Bill, you
No, I just wanted to thank Pam and Cheryl. Thank you. I'm enlightened.
Jill, we got about a minute.
I don't have anything either, other than it's always great to be here. Pam, haven't heard you in so long. Thank you so much. Good to see you. Keep up the good work. Write the book.
Yes.
Write the book. And Cheryl, welcome back. It's good to see you, and Happy New Year to everyone.
Happy New Year, everybody.
All right, our time is up, y'all. Derek, we're putting it back in your hand.
Yes, thank you for everybody. Please make sure you have a wonderful week. Do all you can to affect change, and let's get ready. And we will see you next week. Have a productive week, and we'll talk to you soon. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Right.
Oh, I'm sorry. All right, goodbye, y'all. Bye.